New signs that President Trump may be weathering the media firestorm over last week's legal controversies involving his one-time associates, like former attorney Michael Cohen's plea deal and the conviction of former campaign chairman Paul Manafort, amongst others. A new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll shows the president's approval holding steady at 44%. That compares with a 46% rating earlier last week, mostly before the legal developments. The slight change was within the poll's margin of errors in both cases. A Democratic pollster who helped work on the surveys saying the results are a letdown for Trump critics who hoped Cohen and Manafort's legal troubles would be a watershed in the midterms. Instead, that pollster says what happened last week, quote, represents a fool's gold opportunity rather than a silver bullet solution. Okay, so I wasn't surprised that his personal approval rating didn't go down because we've seen this before. There have been big controversies, and it doesn't seem to change, and you kind of have to measure everything else. But what do you make of what's going on poll-wise, Larry?
The president takes a licking and keeps on ticking. He always has. And you look at his numbers within the black community, for crying out loud. There's a Rasmussen poll that has his numbers in the 30s. That's an outlier. The NAACP has a poll that has his number 21% of black support. That's 3 times what he got when he was elected. It's pretty astounding. And when you look at the pounding he's been taking in the media, NBC, ABC, CBS, 91% or so of the news negative. Imagine if the news were truly, quote, fair and balanced, how well he would do. There's a book called Left Turn written by a friend of mine named Tim Grosclose. He's tried to quantify the damage done by the left-wing media. He says if the media were truly fair and balanced, the average state would vote the way Texas does, which is about 8 to 10 points for the Republican. We talk about collusion. We talk about Russian meddling. The biggest interference, in my opinion, in the election is the left-wing media that's just so hostile to Republicans and in particular hostile to this guy.
I would say I agree with you on the media thing, but I also think that the media has given President Trump so much earned media. It's unbelievable how much they've done.
And then they regret it.
But this is the thing that they do, though. I mean, we have seen the president use it to his advantage, invite the media into the Oval Office where he has these big meetings with the cabinet and into the White House where they're just playing out the pool spray, right? We do that here on this show. And the American people can see that raw and see what they're doing and see that he's working. And then all the stuff around it is kind of just noise when it's so negative. So I think that people actually see it. They see what he's doing. They see results in their own household about having more of their own money, being employed again. These districts that used to be Obama voting districts are now saying that the president has gotten them results. It was worth voting for him. And quite frankly, Republicans who were skeptical about him going into the election have seen that he's actually done a lot that they approve of.
If you look at the internals of this NBC News Wall Street Journal poll that came out, and this is to the media point, was somewhat surprising. Have you seen, read, or heard the news coverage about Michael Cohen pleading guilty? 20% said no. When asked the same question about Paul Manafort being found guilty, 14% said no. And then they asked about the 6 members of the people who were associated with the Trump campaign who had pleaded guilty or had been found guilty of crimes. 30% said don't know enough to say. So it remains to be seen whether those numbers change in the coming weeks. If suddenly somebody's going to turn on some other
network. It has nothing to do with their life. It does not affect them. They don't have the time in their lives to be dealing with those issues. They don't affect them. They put it aside and they want to be focused on what is benefiting them, and that's the economy.
Or they decided, like you pointed out earlier in the show, that they didn't care. They knew who he was coming in, and that probably because he was a playboy and kind of I don't want to say a dirty businessman, but he had, real estate deals that maybe weren't kosher, that his lawyer was not going to be the most upstanding guy. But if you do look at the breakdown, for instance, of the Fox News poll from just a few days ago, the only issue area that the president isn't underwater on is the economy there. He is struggling on national security, border security, healthcare, which is the Democrats' #1 issue. So President Trump isn't on the ballot come November. How do you think Republicans are going to fare? Separating, he'll be fine, but what happens to them?
I still think Republicans are going to do just fine. There's an interesting story right now going on in Abilene, Texas. There was no city that voted more in favor of Trump than Abilene. 80% of the people voted for Trump. They just elected their first black mayor. He got elected by almost the same amount. So if Trump supporters are worried about the country changing from white to a nation of color, if Trump supporters are racist, how do you explain Abilene?
Good question.
Well,
I love stories like Abilene. They're fantastic.
But I go back to, and it's what you said in the last block, Larry. It is about the economy. And the economy, no one in this country needs to turn on the TV and listen to professional bloviators tell them that their wages are going up, or tell them that they feel more financially secure, that they feel like that they can actually change jobs with ease
tell
for
them
the
it's not
first time
happening,
in a decade.
Yeah.
And talk down the economy. They don't need that. They know that. And it's not on their mind about watching somebody take shots at the president when they're sitting in a hospital with their relative getting a chemotherapy infusion, or they're out, shopping for back to school clothes. All of that, it falls by the wayside.
But if you are, for instance, a healthcare voter, which a lot of Americans are, because healthcare is an economic issue, Democrats have a huge advantage there. And it was tied with the economy as the #1 issue.
Some of the premium increases aren't as much as people expected in some states, and they're actually
suddenly
falling
the
in
cost of
some
healthcare
areas.
is not raising at an exponential rate because it's under President Trump. Oh, we've got to go.
Thanks to Obamacare.
Okay, more outnumbered in just a moment.